I'm going to keep this simple and honest, the way we talk in the hallway when the microphones are off. I am sitting in a small room outside Kansas City in a building that used to be an insurance office. There is a window that looks at a parking lot with two floodlights. One is out. The other hums with a thin line of light under it. The power has been steady tonight, which is a relief. The battery on the rack to my left will carry us if it drops. If it does, you will hear a click and then my voice again after the inverter catches up. If you hear a long gap, that means the neighborhood went dark and the inverter could not hand it off. If that happens, do not wait on me. Work your list. Call the next person on your list. Say the plan out loud and do the plan. I will come back when the power does. My name is Daniel. I have been doing this work a long time, most of it on public stations where the pledge drive coffee never got strong enough. I grew up in Liberty, just to the northeast. I learned to cut tape with a razor blade in a classroom at the university in Kansas City. I still say tape even though nothing is tape anymore. Old habit. My kids live on different sides of the map now, which makes the last months heavier than they should be. My son lives in Denver. My daughter rents an apartment near the university in the city and checks in with me when she can. My dad is in assisted living off Kansas Street in Liberty. He has the room with the window that faces the little courtyard with the maple tree that turns red early. He has a good nurse named Carla who keeps a spare phone battery in her bag. He says she never forgets to charge it. This is the kind of detail I hold on to, the small working things. I'm going to start with the plain summary. Over the last months, the center has been fading. Budgets stalled, agencies started running on leftover funds and favors. Then the favors ran out. Courts wrote orders that law enforcement in some counties did not serve. Sheriffs in a few places said they were busy, then said they were not bound by it, then stopped answering questions. Governors wrote executive orders that pointed away from the federal rules and toward state rules. State houses passed laws that said the federal rules did not apply. Federal offices answered with statements that sounded stern and tired. Then they went silent for a day or two at a time because the staff did not show up, or the servers were down, or no one will tell us why. This did not happen in one burst. It stretched. It was a rope that frayed until in some places there was no rope. We heard it first from truckers. The first week of this program, I heard from a driver out of Joplin, a woman named Carrie, who has been running freight since she was 19. She hauls refrigerated and dry. She called from a stop near the state line by Texaco on the New Mexico side, off the highway that runs east and west along the bottom of the country. She said there were cones and state troopers on the Texas side and officers from another agency she did not know. She said they were stopping trucks with plates from other states. She said a trooper told her the order came from Austin that only shipments certified by a new state office could enter. He said it was about safety. She asked what office. He said the state guard was verifying cargo and drivers. She asked for paperwork. He pointed at a trailer with a green stripe that had a logo she did not recognize. She waited 7 hours. She ate jerky and drank a warm soda and watched fruit rot in another driver's reefer because the diesel ran dry while he waited. Carrie turned around and went north and slept in a lot behind a shuttered bowling alley in Clovis. The next morning she sent me a photo of a line of trucks under a pale sky pointing west. I could count them even with my bad eyes. 2 dozen at least. Then California. A stevedore from San Pedro who asked me not to use his full name. He has handled containers for 20 years. He told me the state announced it was assuming operational control of its ports. The governor stood in front of a row of cranes and said this was necessary to prevent sabotage and hoarding. Customs officers were told to coordinate with a state office. He said the feds pushed back for a day and then pulled some people off the yard. Containers stacked up. The longshore crews kept working because paychecks kept coming from a state fund. A week later, my stevedore told me ship captains were holding offshore because no one could say who would sign off on bills of lading. He said a ship from Asia turned away to British Columbia so it could offload and rail the cargo east under a Canadian contract. He said the harbor looked busy, but nothing moved. The legal calls began after that. A professor at the law school in Lawrence came on with a short, careful voice. She explained that states can pass laws that conflict with federal statutes and that the courts usually sort it out. She said the courts could not sort it out if sheriffs did not enforce, if clerks would not file, if officers did not show up to testify, if the power shut off. She told me about the emergency management compact that lets states send help to each other. She said those compacts only work if governors trust one another's orders and if reimbursements clear. Then a city attorney from Amarillo called and said reimbursements to his city for storm damage from 2 years ago were still pending because the paperwork was missing from one federal server that was now offline. He said his council voted to accept aid only from private donors and neighboring counties because the state wanted strings on it and the feds could not deliver. He sounded tired. He said he hated to say it out loud, but he did not think any court could put this back together. If you are new here, I should explain what I mean by the State Guard. Some states already have state defense forces separate from the National Guard. They train under state law. They do not deploy overseas. Texas has one. California has one. New York has one. Florida revived one. In the last months, other states created new ones. Some are formal. Some are volunteer networks with uniforms and ID cards printed in a county office. I am not mocking anyone's effort. People saw a failure and tried to fill the gaps, but this created a tangle. In several places, those new state forces stepped into missions that the National Guard used to handle when the governor and the federal government were on the same page. The National Guard answers to the governor under state status and to the president under federal status. That is the short version. When governors and the federal government are not on the same page, the phone calls get strange, and units stand down rather than wade into an order that might become a lawsuit or worse. We have been hearing a lot of stand-downs. A spouse of a guardsman out of Junction City called me on a Wednesday night. Her name is Amy. Her husband serves with an infantry battalion that drills near the big army post with the long grass runways west of Topeka. She said they were told to prepare for a movement to New Mexico to help with fires. She bought batteries and folded socks and put the dog at her sister's house in Wamego. Then the call came that the movement was delayed. Then it was canceled. She did not get a reason. She heard secondhand that the unit could not cross into another state without a specific legal cover. She asked me what that meant. I told her the phrase she was looking for was state active duty under a compact or federal active duty under a national order. Neither one seemed to materialize. She asked me if that meant her husband was safe. I told her it meant that he would be home for that weekend. She asked about next week. I did not answer because I did not know. Closer to home, the power grid has been the most honest messenger. Our region ties into the Southwest Power Pool. That is the grid operator that runs a lot of the middle of the country from the Panhandle to the Dakotas. They have been sending out conservation notices and then moving to controlled outages to keep the bigger system intact. If you live in Johnson County, if you live in Wyandotte, if you live up here in Clay or Platte, you have probably seen your lights go out for an hour or two while a neighborhood on the other side of the river stays on. People get mad at what they can see. I get that. The thing is, the operator is doing triage. Generation has been tight. A plant in Missouri came back from maintenance, but a gas pipeline to a unit in Oklahoma is at reduced flow because the compressor station is running with half a crew and a broken part that is stuck on a truck at a closed state checkpoint near the Panhandle. I did not make that up. A lineman from Salina, name is Eric, called and told me the order of operations. He said the crews know how to move power. He said the crews will keep doing it until their boots wear out. He said do not expect miracles if diesel deliveries keep getting turned around at state lines. We have been keeping a running map on an old whiteboard of what listeners tell us is happening at borders. It is not official. It is a community tool. We pin what we can confirm with more than one person. We mark uncertainty in a different color. We have pins at the Texas and New Mexico line near Anthony, at the Texas and Oklahoma line near Texola, at the California and Arizona line near Blythe, at the Tennessee and Arkansas bridge in Memphis where state troopers were counting trucks and waving through only those with stamped manifests. If you work those posts and you think I am wrong, call me and I will adjust the board. I am not trying to embarrass anyone. I am trying to tell the truth and get help moving where it needs to move. On the water side, our friends north along the Missouri River keep sending notes about barge traffic. A tow captain out of Jefferson City said the Corps dispatch line gave him a recorded message for 2 days. He tied up at Herman and waited for a new gauge reading. He said the river was open but the locks were on reduced hours because the crews had been cut after the continuing resolution expired. He said he did not see security boats on his stretch. He said a county sheriff pulled up in a pickup and asked if he had seen anything suspicious. He said he had seen 3 bald eagles and 2 kids fishing from a rock. He is not a funny man. It was just a plain report. The point is that the normal federal presence you expect on a river was thin. Airports. Our airport north of the river has the new single terminal. It is clean and easy. It has worked well since it opened. This last month it has gone sideways a few times because the national staffing pipeline for screeners and air traffic controllers is not functioning in a predictable way. The tower has remained staffed. The security checkpoints have stayed open most days because the city and the airlines have been patching from their side. A pilot based out of here told me she is flying fewer legs because the dispatcher works on an old schedule and cannot reach the federal people who used to sign off on the new routing when weather rolled across the plains. When you do not know if a federal office will pick up the phone, you fly cautious. You delay. You cancel. Passengers yell at a gate agent who has no lever to pull. Then they go home and blame the person in front of them. This is the quiet damage that has multiplied. I keep getting messages about constitutional conventions. The phrase means different things depending on who is using it. Some groups are holding meetings to write model laws to insulate their states from federal control. Some are trying to organize an interstate convention under the clause in the Constitution that allows states to propose amendments. Some of those people are serious. Some are aimless. A retired judge called from Omaha and told me the only conventions that matter in the end are the ones where the people with power and guns agree to be bound. He said if the federal executive cannot enforce a ruling, the ruling is a letter to an empty room. He said that in a flat voice and then asked me about the score of a baseball game that did not happen because the league suspended play 2 weeks ago. I paused and said I did not have a score. He said that was a joke, even if he did not laugh. Let me tell you a few straight stories from callers that stuck. I do not embellish, these are clean. A nurse from a clinic in Garden City said her clinic took delivery of insulin from a church van because the usual distributor could not clear a border post to the south and could not find a driver willing to go west and circle around. The church kept their receipts. The clinic director wrote a letter promising to reimburse the church when the insurer and the state and the federal funds settled. The nurse said no one in that room believed the paperwork would settle soon, but the insulin stayed cold and patients got their shots. A school superintendent in a small town south of Wichita said bus routes were cut to bare minimum because the district had to conserve diesel. He said he closed the high school on Fridays to save power and shifted classes to the mornings. He said he called the state for guidance. The state told him to do what he had to do. The federal people sent an email that bounced. He said he was not angry. He said he was disappointed because he wanted to work inside rules that were clear. He said in the absence of rules, decent people could still act decent if they had a common picture of what was fair. He did not think that picture existed anymore across lines. He said it still existed in his town. A union leader at a package hub near Lenexa told me the company asked for volunteers to move shipments under an agreement with a state logistics office instead of the federal one. The union negotiated a small hazard stipend and a written statement that the workers were not acting as law enforcement, just moving boxes. The first night, a group of men in unmarked uniforms with state guard patches tried to direct the drivers to a distribution point that was not on the schedule. The union rep told them to bring a state logistics supervisor with a badge and a written order. The men said the supervisor was busy. The union rep radioed the company and told the drivers to leave. The men threatened charges. The union rep said the drivers were going home. The next day, the company received 3 different letters from 3 different agencies claiming authority. The packages sat. The medicine inside them expired. I have talked to the union rep 6 times. He sounds calm. He is tracking what is happening in a notebook because he says memories bend when people are scared. A cattle rancher near Dodge City sent a voice memo. He said a private convoy came through with license plates from 2 states and a state trooper in the lead. They wanted to buy diesel. He said he could not spare it. They offered cash. He said he needed it for his pumps and his trucks. They said this fuel was for a hospital in Oklahoma. He asked for paperwork. They handed him a letter with a seal he did not recognize. He called his sheriff. The sheriff told him to decide for himself. The rancher said he was not a fuel commissioner. The sheriff said neither was he. The rancher sold them 200 gallons. He said he shut off the pump when they hit 200 and told them to go. He said he felt sick. He said he did not know if he had just helped a hospital or a scam. He wanted someone else to tell him what was right. There was no one else. Closer to the coasts, a longshore crane operator out of Oakland said a state agent told her crew to give priority to containers marked with a new emergency tag. She asked where the tag came from. He said a state office. She asked if a federal agency agreed. He said it did not matter. She did the job. A week later, a federal marshal showed up on the yard with 2 other agents and demanded the tags and the records. The state troopers told them to leave the yard. No one drew a weapon. No one got arrested. The agents left. The crane operator said, "She has never seen something so silent and so tense." She said everyone pretended the shift was normal. She said it was not. The military peace is the one that makes people catch their breath. I'm going to be careful, because rumor grows in this space. Here is what I have confirmed with more than one source. Units at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri are on normal operations. The official line is that strategic assets remain in federal hands and under federal orders. The base is active duty. The Missouri Air Guard that shares duties with the bomber wing is still drilling. At the same time, the Missouri governor announced a state guard program and placed members at a few state facilities for security. That has caused confusion for people who do not live in this world and who see a uniform and assume it is the same uniform. It is not. In Kansas, the air refueling wing out of Topeka is doing what it can under federal tasking. The planes are old and tough and have kept flying. A crew chief sent me a note that made me put my head down on the desk. He said the part he needed was in a crate that sat 3 days on a truck, that sat 1 day at a state checkpoint and then went back to the depot because the driver's permit was not accepted by an officer who was not sure what to accept anymore. He went to a boneyard to pull a temporary fix. The plane flew. He said he will not be a hero about it. He just wants the part to arrive next time with less drama. He said this used to be boring. He misses boring. I do not want to skip past the law enforcement calls because they are hard. County deputies in Missouri and Kansas have been playing with me off the record. They say their radios cross state lines by design, and that helps for car chases and storms. They say lately, the regional channels are quiet because no one wants a recording that shows one county told another county to stand down on an order that came from a state office. A deputy north of the river told me he drove past a federal truck marked with a relief agency logo that had pulled into a lot after driving all day from a warehouse in Illinois. 2 state patrol cars boxed the truck and told the driver to wait for an escort. The deputy wanted to help. He said he kept going because he did not know whose rules applied. He said he will not go to prison for a decision he does not understand. He said he has kids and a mortgage and an old dog who barks at passing trains. He is not a coward. He is watching a job he understands warp into something he does not. A lot of you ask me what to do with your money. I'm not a financial advisor. I can tell you what my neighbors are doing. Some are paying their property taxes early in case the county office closes. Some are paying late to hold cash. Some are buying diesel and filling tanks. Some are moving out of cities to stay with family. Some are moving into cities to be close to hospitals. A bank manager in North Kansas City told me they have cash limits for withdrawals because armored cars are on a weird schedule. She said cards still work at most places when the machines are up. She said her staff is polite to people who are angry and scared even when those people do not earn the kindness. She said she goes home and sits in a chair in her driveway until the sun is gone. Not because she loves sunsets, but because she does not want to be inside another room with fluorescent lights. She is trying to remember what a normal day felt like. On the political front, I am not going to tell you a grand story. There is not one. There are 50 different versions and another few for the territories. In Missouri, the State House passed a bill that says federal officers must clear arrests with the state in some categories. In Kansas, the legislature took up a measure to refuse any federal public health order that conflicts with a state board. In Texas, you already know what is happening at the borders because you told me. In California, the ports are under state control. In the Northeast, I'm told a few states formed a compact to share power and guard rails on fuel deliveries. And the governor of one of those states told the Federal Energy Department to put their requests in writing and wait. None of it makes a clean map. It makes a spread of zones where different rules apply and where the rules change when personnel change. The federal people send statements that sound the same they have always sounded. The difference is what happens after the statement. Less happens after the statement. We have had blackouts in the city, in the suburbs, and out in the counties. The pattern is obvious if you do not try to make it pretty. When the generation mixes tight and the day is hot or very cold, the operator sheds load. When a transmission line is out for planned maintenance and the replacement part sits at a border, neighborhoods go dark for longer. Water crews push boil advisories out, not because someone did something wrong, but because chlorine pumps and monitors lose power during those cuts and the readings are not reliable. If you get a boil advisory, do the simple thing. Bring the water to a rolling boil and hold it there. Let it cool. Do not forget pet bowls. I am not your dad. I'm just a person who has watched a lot of people get sick because the basics got skipped under stress. I told you from the top that I would be honest about my own life, so you do not think I'm a faceless voice who will glide out of this room into a secure garage and a driver. My car is the old one, with the dent in the quarter panel from the winter when a teenager learning to drive slid into it on a side street and cried, even though I told him it was fine. The tires are decent. I keep the tank over half. I carry a small bag with a charger and a paper map. Why a paper map? Because a sheriff's deputy told me cell coverage has been patchy when power cuts hit the towers. If the map app does not refresh, a person starts guessing. I am done guessing with no tools. I also keep a sandwich in the office fridge. This is not a survival show. This is me being plain about things you can do without turning it into a fantasy. Healthcare has been grinding, and the quiet grind is what breaks people. A pharmacist in Independence said her supplier will only ship on Tuesdays and Fridays now, and that the shipment comes with an escort if it is anything high value, which means the bag all meds sit until the next run. That is why you see core meds go missing on a Wednesday. She tries her best to ration. She did not use that word, I did. She said she sets aside refills for the oldest patients first because those are the patients most at risk if the meds stop. She said she hates those choices. She said it is what she has to do until there is a consistent flow. I asked if she thought the flow would come back. She said not without a working center. That's her phrase. She said she had never said it out loud before, and it sounded big in the air. I want to talk about guns for a minute because it is a big part of the landscape and I'm tired of pretending it is not. A few states have put state guard at food distribution sites. In some places, those guards carry rifles chambered in 5.56 millimeter. In some places, they carry 9 millimeter sidearms. I have seen photos with mixed magazines and mismatched slings. Some of these units look squared away and trained. Some look like a church softball team pressed into service. I do not make fun of them. I say this so you calibrate your expectations. These are not the same as a federalized National Guard unit with standardized logistics and clear law. If a guard at a gate tells you a rule that does not make sense, understand that he might be repeating what he was told 15 minutes ago by a sergeant who was handed a one-page sheet by a mayor. Document what happens. Do not escalate a situation that does not need escalation. The goal is to get food and go home. I know I keep using the phrase no center. It is not a slogan. It is a fact pattern I am seeing and hearing. It means there is no single chain of command that is functioning across state lines, across courts, across agencies. It means that words on paper are not moving trucks on highways. It means that a governor in one state can say, "We will accept this," and a governor in another state can say, "We will not." And nothing above them makes either choice converge. I am not assigning blame. I am describing a system that got brittle over years and then met stress, and then met more stress, and then ran out of elasticity. I do not say this to depress you. I say it because once we describe it, we can work inside reality instead of shouting at an old picture. So let me set down some practical steps people in this area tell me are helping. These are boring. Good. Boring is reliable. Write a list of 4 households near you with names, phone numbers, and any medical it needs. Keep that list on paper where you can find it in the dark. First names are fine. You are not building a registry. You are building a ring. Knock on a door once a week and say out loud what you can share and what you need. Make it small and true. I have 3 extra gallons of water if anyone's pump goes out. I need a ride to the clinic on Tuesday morning. I can babysit for 2 hours if your shift got moved. It is not corny, it is logistics. Talk to whoever lives in the unit next to your dad or your mom or your aunt in assisted living. My dad's neighbor is a man named John who keeps an eye on the hallway during the meal delivery. John calls me when the staff is short so I can call the front desk if the trays are late. This is not an indictment of staff. It is a reinforcement. It keeps the system honest. It works because we do it every week, not just when the news gets loud. If your household takes prescription meds, mark the refill dates on a paper calendar and ask your pharmacist what the best day is to come in under the new schedule. On time matters if the truck only comes twice a week. Ask politely. The pharmacist is not hiding pills from you for sport. Bring exact change if you can. When card systems are flaky, exact cash keeps the line moving. For power, find out if your block has a pattern for the controlled outages. In my neighborhood, it has been 1 hour off, 4 hours on during peak evenings. That is not a promise. That is a pattern we watched for a week. If you can shift laundry to morning, do it. If you can put a note on your freezer that says "Do not open during outage," do it. Tape that note on and leave it. Your future self will ignore hunger and read the tape. You will keep the cold inside the box. You will thank yourself later. For driving, if you must cross a border that has a checkpoint, plan for an extra hour and bring water. Keep your papers, not because you love papers, but because a guard who is not confident will wave through the person who can show a clean envelope. State that your purpose is family or work in a plain voice. If someone says turn back, turn back. Do not try to win the day in a parking lot with a person who has a rifle and an unstable command chain. Your job is to get home. I want to read a few short notes to keep us grounded in real names, so this does not feel like a fog. This one is from Teresa in Riverside. She runs a daycare out of her house. She says 2 of her parents who work nights at the distribution center got their shift changed to afternoons to match the power window, and now pick up as tents because they sit in traffic at the state line every day. She asks if anyone in the Northland can share rides for 3 kids on weekdays. She lists the street, but I'm not going to read it. If you live near the high school up there and can help, leave your phone number with our voicemail and I will pass it along. This is from Mark in Raytown. He works for a grocery co-op. He says the store is closing at 8 in the evening instead of 10 to save power. He says older customers tend to shop late after dinner and are getting turned away. He asks if anyone can help spread the word to congregations and clubs that shopping hours are different, so people do not show up and find the door locked. That is an easy ask. If you help, tell me you did, and I will read your name here. This is from Leo, a former Marine who lives near Excelsior Springs. He says there is a rumor that a federal convoy will be distributing free diesel at the fairgrounds. He says this rumor is wrong and is going to get someone hurt. He says the fairgrounds manager told him they will host a farmer's market with generators running and 12 vendors, and that is it. I am repeating this because there have been too many times in the last month when a rumor sends 100 cars to an empty lot and rage rolls through because people feel tricked. I'm not blaming anyone for hoping. I am asking people to verify a time and a place before they drive. This is from a pastor in Kansas City, Kansas. He says the church kitchen is open from noon to 2 on Tuesdays and Thursdays for hot meals and a place to sit while the power is off at home. He says you do not have to be a member. He says if you bring a bag of rice, they will cook it and share it back out. I like this because it is clean. It does not fix the grid. It fills stomachs. It builds a small expectation that something reliable exists in the week. Now I want to tell you where my head went this week. It was not a big national speech. It was a quiet moment in a driveway in Liberty. I went to see my dad. He is a stubborn man who loves the Royals and reads the same 3 books over and over because he says new books take too much work. Carla had him in the courtyard to get some sun. She had a sweater on him that did not match his pants. He did not care. I told him about the calls. He said that when he was a kid, the town council used to organize volunteer fire lines during dry summers, and no one asked the state for permission. He said that was not better or worse. It was just how people acted. When the person with authority was the person who could put a ladder on a truck. I am not drawing a lesson too far from that. I am saying we are living in a time when local is going to carry more weight than it did. I am saying I trust the people who show up more than the people who send a link to a PDF that no one can load because the power is out. We have gone 4 weeks on this stream of reports since the first calls about border checks and port control and units refusing cross-state orders. 4 weeks is not a precise mark on a calendar. It is a measure of how long it took to admit the shape of the thing. This week is the week I say out loud what many of you have been saying in your kitchens and on your porches. There is no functioning center. There are overlapping jurisdictions, crumbling infrastructure and patches, and a spreading pattern of blackouts. There is no single plan that reaches all of us. There are plans that reach some of us. We will need to stack those plans next to each other and make them useful where they touch. That is the work. Some of you want a hope speech. I do not do speeches. I can give you a path for Monday morning. On Monday morning, write the names of the people in the 3 houses closest to yours. If you do not know them, learn them. Put those names on a piece of paper on your fridge. Under each name, write 1 line for a thing that person can do for the block, and 1 line for a thing that person needs. If you get stuck, pick yourself. You can carry water upstairs. You need a ride on Tuesdays. That is real. Tape the paper to the fridge. Do not put it in a drawer. If you have kids, show it to them, and give them a job that is not pretend. Kids can refill water bottles. Kids can stack canned food on a shelf and count. Kids can read names out loud when the power is off and someone is scared. On Monday at lunch, call the clinic and confirm hours. If you hear a recorded message, write down the hours and the instructions. If the instructions include an online portal, do not rely on it. Go in person on Tuesday to confirm, even if it means a short wait. Tell the receptionist you just want to make sure you have the right days. Do not shout. Bring a pen. Write the right days on the paper list. On Monday afternoon, check the city website for boil advisories and trash pickup changes. Take a screenshot, print it if you can, or write the changes in plain words and tape them next to the name list. If there is a community bulletin board at the end of your block, nail a piece of plywood to 2 posts and call it a board. Write in marker. Things written with ink on boards are surprisingly durable when batteries die. Do not overthink font. If you are the person in your house who watches politics, keep watching, but stop letting speeches eat your time. The game moved to paperwork, trucks, and hours of operation. That is where you can measure what is true. Did the aid convoy reach a county building and open a line to hand out water at 9 in the morning? Did the port actually offload 3 ships and move the containers to railheads? Did the power operator post the outage schedule and follow it within a margin of error that a grown person can accept? Those are the proofs. The rest is noise until it converts into a schedule. I want to touch one more sore spot. A few people have asked if this is the start of war. No. This is something else. This is a country that stopped agreeing on the rules for refereeing fights. Without rules, every small fight feels larger. The answer to that is not to pick a new referee out of thin air and expect obedience. The answer is to make rules that work at the scale you can touch, write them down, and live by them. The county will do some of that. The city will do some, the state will do some, the feds will do some. We will live in a patchwork for a while. If you expect a quilt to behave like a flag, you will be angry every day. If you expect it to be warm enough to sleep, you can work with it. I am not asking you to love this. I am asking you to stop pretending it is not the shape of things right now. We need a few very specific updates before we close. Logistics first. Fuel, reports say the racks in Kansas City, Kansas will open with reduced hours tomorrow. From 6 in the morning to noon. That is 6 hours. If you run a fleet, do not show up at 5 in the morning and block the road. The state guard may be present. If the guard tells you to queue in a way that looks unsafe, ask for a supervisor. If the supervisor does not appear, document the scene and call your company. Do not ram a gate. You will end up in jail, and right now jail is a place with thin staffing and a lot of stress. Ports, the word from the West is that 2 ships will be offloaded at the Long Beach complex under the new state schedule, and that truck appointments are being controlled by the state logistics office. If you are a dispatcher, do not send a driver without confirmation in writing, and keep a screenshot. If it goes sideways, screenshots with timestamps help in disputes and in the court that will eventually exist again in more than name. Borders. New Mexico reports that the checkpoint of the Texas line on the route near Anthony will be staffed by state police, and that commercial cars with manifests can pass with inspection. Private vehicles may be waved through or turned around depending on traffic. If you are driving to a funeral or a hospital, bring paperwork and be ready to show it. Do not rely on a text on your phone. Paper in a clear sleeve beats a dead battery. Grid. The operator issued a conservation appeal for tomorrow from 4 in the afternoon to 9 in the evening. That means do the big draw tasks in the morning. If you are a business with big coolers, pre-cool in the morning. If you are a restaurant, front-load prep, and keep the doors shut during the evening peak if you can. If you are a hospital facilities manager, you do not need me to tell you anything. You have your list. Hospitals. University Health in the city and the big hospital in Overland Park both report full emergency rooms and ask that people use urgent care for non-life-threatening issues. If you have a cut that needs stitches and it is not deep and you are not bleeding heavily, go to the urgent care during daytime to save the emergency department for cardiac and respiratory cases. This is not rationing. This is common sense when staffing is thin. Schools, Kansas City. Public schools say they will remain open this week on the normal schedule, but may shift to early dismissal if the grid operator calls for outages. Families should watch for text alerts. Teachers, if you hear this, please write assignments on paper that can travel home. Digital is good until it is not. One more military note. Families at the post near Junction City report a town hall scheduled for Tuesday at 6 in the evening in the community center. The commanding officer will brief family members on training cycles and travel restrictions. Expect firm language. Expect answers to be short. If you are a spouse, bring a notebook and write the answers down. If you are given a phone number, test it in the room before you leave. If it does not ring, ask for a second number. Do not accept hand waving. You are allowed to be exact when your household depends on it. For context, if the commander says movements will occur at 0600 hours, that is 0600 hours, not morning or after breakfast. Write it the way he says it. Now, let me add what the families who have already sat through briefings told me to expect. You will not get timelines for anything beyond a week. You may get a list of no later than dates instead of firm days. There will be a slide about childcare on drill weekends. There will be a slide about travel radius during standby. If you have kids, bring a neighbor to sit with them in the lobby. Do not try to balance a toddler and a panic attack at the same time. And when the briefing ends, do not rush the front. Form a line, ask your one question, write the answer, step away. That keeps the room from melting down. All right. I promise more detail tonight, more of the messy truth you keep asking for. Here it is. At 3 in the afternoon, we got our first real run at a catastrophe that was not far away news. It was local and ugly, and fixable only because a lot of people made smart choices fast. At 2:45 in the afternoon, a transformer yard on the north side of the river flashed and burned. You probably saw the plume if you were on the highway. The pop shook windows in the old industrial strip by the levee. Evergy's automated system tripped and isolated the yard, which is a fancy way of saying a whole slice of the metro went dark. Parts of North Kansas City, a wedge of Clay County, a chunk of Platte. Traffic lights out. Grocery coolers stalled. My dad's assisted living center lost grid power and switched to their generator. Their generator is a diesel unit with a day tank. That tank had less than 1/4 left from last week's outages. No one was negligent. Diesel has been hard to get. The delivery was due in the morning and turned around at a state checkpoint near the river bridge because the driver had the wrong letterhead on his bill of lading. That is what the manager told me on the phone. Carla, my dad's nurse, called and said the generator would run a few more hours and then stop. She asked me what to do if the power did not come back. I asked how many oxygen-dependent residents were in the building. She said 9. I asked if they had portable tanks. She said yes, but only for transfer, not for a whole night. I asked if she could call the city's emergency management line. She said she already had. It rang. No one answered. That is not a scandal. The office was probably dealing with the fire, but it meant the problem was ours for a bit. I called a listener named Jonah, a mechanic in Liberty with a service truck and a 200-gallon transfer tank in the bed. He helps farmers in the summer and plow crews in the winter. He answered on the first ring. I told him the address and the situation. He said he could bring 100 gallons if the roads were clear. I told him to wait while I found a green light from someone with a badge. You do not roll a fuel truck into a facility full of old folks without permission. That is how you end up on the wrong end of a problem. I called the Clay County duty officer's number we keep on a card here. A woman named Serena answered. I explained fast and gave names. She asked for the generator model and the fuel inlet type. I got that from Carla by having her read the plate over the phone. Serena said, "Stand by. I am calling a county inspector to meet you and sign for the transfer." Then she did it. She called me back 5 minutes later with a name. Inspector Halverson. She gave his cell. She told me he would meet Jonah at the south entrance in 25 minutes, sign the log, and supervise the transfer. Then she said, "Do not move until he is on site." I agreed. This is how you stay out of jail and keep the insurance valid when the insurer is looking for any reason to deny a claim. I called Jonah. He rolled. He got stopped at a checkpoint 2 blocks from the facility, 2 deputies and 2 men with state guard patches standing near a sawhorse. The deputies waved him through. The state guard guy tried to redirect him to a staging area in the wrong lot. Jonah stayed calm. He said, "Sir, I am acting under the county duty officer. The inspector is waiting at the south door." He used the exact words. That matters. The state guard guy frowned. The deputy told the guard to relax and waved Jonah through again. Jonah called me and said, "That could have gone sideways." I told him, "It didn't. Keep it moving." On site, the inspector checked the ground, set out a drip pan, and supervised the transfer. 100 gallons went into the day tank. The generator ran steady. Carla called and told me the oxygen concentrators hummed back to life. She said 4 residents had been pale and were now pink again. She said she almost cried. She is tougher than me, so if she almost cried, I'm allowed to admit my hands shook on the desk. What are the decisions in a moment like that? Use the phone. Ask for permission from the right office. Insist on a name. Get the inspector. Keep your language clean and formal at the gate. Do not escalate a person who is there to look official. Bring paperwork. Even if the paper is a name and a cell number on a torn envelope. Then do the work fast and leave. The end. It is not heroic. It is precise. That is how we get through this without turning every fix into a brawl. While that was happening, another thing hit. A train climbed out of the Argentine yard and stalled on the grade because dispatch had to reroute around a broken signal. A mile of mixed freight blocking a crossing. 2 ambulances needed that crossing for a transfer from a clinic in Turner to the hospital in the city. I got the first call from a paramedic named Rita. She said they were stuck at the back of a long line of cars. She had a heart patient in the back, stable but not happy. She asked if I had a plane number for the railroad. I do. It is on a yellow card next to this mic. It is the emergency line for blocked crossings. Anyone can call it. She had already called. She got a recording. I called and got the same. So I called a listener named Bill who works signal for the railroad. He should not be your first call for a blocked crossing, but tonight he was the only working path. I told him the train number and the crossing street. He said he would call the yardmaster direct. He did. The engineer backed the train in short sections to clear the crossing. It took 15 minutes. The ambulances moved. Rita texted me cleared and a thumbs up. Here is the point. Know the emergency number for your railroad. Write it down. If it fails, get a person who knows a name. People are smarter than recordings. Then the rumor storm hit. A text started flying that the Missouri River water intake was contaminated. The text used the word chemical, no source, no measurement. People began filling bathtubs. 2 grocery stores reported crowds buying water they did not have. A man in a gray hoodie shouted at a cashier in a video that will do 1 million views in 2 hours. I called water services. Their comms person, Alan, answered. He said the intake was fine. The turbidity was within range. Chlorine residuals were normal. He sent me a screen grab of the instruments, time-stamped. I read the numbers on air and told people to calm down. Then I called a chemist who works for the city to translate for anyone who wanted a deeper explanation. She said, if the plant had a contamination event, we would shut the intake, switch to reserve storage, and push a boil order. That did not happen. The instruments are steady. That is the chain you follow when a rumor tries to set your town on fire. New problem. A truck carrying dialysis supplies from a manufacturer in the suburbs needed to cross into Kansas before the controlled outage window. The driver, Shauna, reached a state checkpoint with 2 state guard and 1 trooper. The state guard said her manifest was not stamped with the state seal. Shauna showed a company letter and a contract with a hospital in Topeka. The guard said no. The trooper said, come on, this is medical. The guard said, orders. Shauna called her dispatcher, who told her to turn around and try the bridge to the north. She called me instead. I told her to hold and texted a hospital administrator I know in Topeka. He called the state logistics duty officer for medical. 3 calls later, the guard had a new instruction. He waved her through. She said it felt like a coin toss. She told me she was 2 hours late to the hospital, and the techs applauded when she backed into the bay. She cried in the cab for 5 minutes, then drove home. Again, clean decisions. Pause. Escalate to the right duty officer. Do not try to run a checkpoint. Get a name. Get the instruction changed. Let's widen the lens and keep the detail. California's port controls bled into rail tonight. A dispatcher in Barstow told me the state logistics office wants priority on containers with emergency tags, so the yard is reshuffling tracks to push tagged boxes east. He said the engineers are doing it. He also said a federal agent came through with a clipboard asking for the manifests. The yard manager told the agent to email the state office. The agent said he would not. He left. The trains moved anyway. 2 hours lost to the argument. Multiply that by hundreds of yards and docks, and you get the week we are living in. In Texas, we have more reports of armed state guard units replacing National Guard at food sites. Gear check. Rifles in 5.56 millimeter with mixed magazines, some steel, some polymer. Sidearms in 9 millimeter from 3 different manufacturers on the same line. Holsters that do not match retention standards. Uniforms varied. Some squared away, some not. Most of the young men are calm and respectful. A few are not. If you are in those lines, keep your hands visible and your voice level. If you see a guard doing something unsafe with a rifle, leave the line and return later. That is not cowardice. That is risk management. Tell the supervisor quietly. If they blow you off, document it and send it to the county. Stay alive. You do not get points for arguing with a muzzle. Back here, a hospital facilities manager sent me a note about a different kind of failure. Their autoclaves for sterilizing instruments run on steam. Steam comes from a plant that needs gas. Gas flow hiccuped during the controlled outage, so the steam plant tripped. Autoclaves cooled. That meant no sterile instruments for 2 planned surgeries. The surgeons pushed them 24 hours. 2 patients got bumped. No one died. 2 lives still got heavier. The manager said he is building a manual backup plan for a rolling sterilization schedule, so instruments are always cycling in the morning, not in the afternoon when the grid is wobbly. Boring detail, big impact. Now, a harder thing. A caller named Gavin from the west side described looting. I do not glorify it. A convenience store blacked out. A group smashed a window. The owner had already pulled tobacco and cash. The group took chips, warm beer, and soda. They left a mess. Police did not respond. Not because they do not care, because the dispatcher had 7 calls stacked above it. A welfare check, 2 vehicle accidents, 1 assault, 1 domestic, 1 possible stroke, and a report of shots that may have been a generator backfiring. The store owner swept glass and boarded the opening with 2 sheets of plywood. His neighbor stood watch with a flashlight and a dog. Gavin asked me what to do if this happens on his block. I told him to set motion lights, park cars in a way that blocks quick pull-ins, and stand outside in small groups with phones recording. Voices and lights push most opportunists away. Do not wave guns around unless you are legally and morally prepared to use them. That is the clean rule. Let's go to the highways. A family from Las Cruces tried to reach a funeral in Lubbock. They hit the checkpoint at Anthony. The guards told them to turn around. They called me from a motel parking lot. The mother was shaking. I could hear kids trying to be quiet in the back. I told her this straight. You cannot fight a checkpoint today. Go around tomorrow morning at first light via the route north to Clovis. Cross in the Panhandle where the checks are lighter, and arrive by late afternoon. Call the funeral home and ask them to move the service 1 hour. She did. The director moved it. The family made it. The kids carried flowers. That is a win counted in hours and patience. I promise catastrophes, not because I like them, but because describing them helps you prepare without drama. Tonight we had a small chemical release at a private warehouse in the Fairfax district. A forklift clipped a pallet of pool shock. Bags tore, powder spilled. Chlorine smell rolled through the loading dock. Workers ran outside and stood in a cluster by the fence, some coughing. The first fire truck arrived fast. The crew put on respirators, pulled a hose line, and rinsed the area. They shut the building, used fans, and called Hazmat. Hazmat asked for a state inspector because the warehouse was being used as a pop-up distribution center under a state tag. Someone called the number. It rang. They called a second number. That one answered. The inspector arrived and signed the log. Here is what matters. No one died. One worker went to urgent care for irritation. The crew did the job. If you work in a warehouse right now, keep a clean aisle. Know where your spill kit is, and do not stack incompatible chemicals because the manifest is a mess. That is a real fix you can do without waiting for a speech. We also had a kid go missing for 3 hours when school dismissed early for power conservation. The buses did not run the extra route because diesel is tight. The school text alert went out late because the server rebooted. The kid walked to a friend's house and sat on a porch until his mom found him. No harm in the end, just 3 hours of panic. Schools, put dismissal changes on paper with backup phone trees. Parents, write your kid's safe houses on a card and stick it in his backpack. Basic stuff. Let's talk about money fast because it keeps coming up. A credit union in North Kansas City told me their cash delivery is now every other day. The armored car company merged 2 routes. That means the branch can go dry on a Wednesday afternoon. They will put a sign out. Do not scream at the teller. Use your card when the machines are up. Keep a little cash at home for gas stations that flip to cash when the network stutters. Not a bucket. A few days' worth. If that sounds boring, good, that is the theme. Another frank note on guns, because the requests for clarity keep coming. A handful of state houses are deputizing civilians into state guard with a safety class that lasts one afternoon. If you are on one of those details, check your gear. Make sure the rifle is properly zeroed. A rough mechanical zero is not good enough in a crowded parking lot. If you do not know how to zero, ask an experienced member to help at a safe range. Use ear and eye protection. Keep your finger indexed. Keep the muzzle down. Do not stage a rifle on a truck tailgate and walk away. If you are not trained for crowd control, your best gift to your state is to carry boxes and direct traffic, not to stand in the hot zone, pretending to be a barricade. That is not disrespect. That is care for people around you. Across the river, a nursing home ran out of adult diapers this morning. They called 3 suppliers. All 3 said they would deliver Friday. That was 4 days away. A church posted a list and filled it in 2 hours. A carpenter named Luis built shelves in the laundry room to get the boxes off the floor so they would not wick water during the next mop. That little fix reduces waste and keeps people dry. It spares staff time. If you are a church or club, adopt one facility. Ask for a weekly list. Keep it tight. Food, hygiene, batteries. Deliver on the same day and time each week so routines return. We did take a federal call tonight. A man with a calm voice from a 3-letter agency asked me to stop using the word collapse on air. I told him I did not use it tonight. He laughed once, dry. He said words matter. I said schedules matter more. He thanked me for the Transformer story. He said their field people appreciated the restraint at the checkpoint. I told him to send a memo to the checkpoint crews that says, accept county duty officer authority for emergency diesel deliveries, and to put that memo on a site that works on a phone in a parking lot. He said he would try. He sounded tired. I do not hate him. I want his office to remember not to treat our street as a chessboard. A note for people who are looking for work in this mess, because the bills did not stop. Warehouse jobs are everywhere. Check the industrial district south of the river. Some of those jobs pay in checks with a 2-week lag. Ask for a daily pay option. A few places are doing it old school with paper and a manager's signature at the end of a shift. Security jobs are open too. If you go that route, pick sites with clear instructions, not just a uniform and a shrug. Ask for a written post order. If the supervisor cannot hand you one sheet of paper with hours, duties, and an emergency number, leave. Your safety depends on clarity. Let me circle back to the Army families before I lose the thread. A wife named Priya emailed after a similar town hall last week at an aviation unit. She said the commander gave 3 key points. 1. Have a plan for kids if call-ups happen with 6 hours notice. 2. Keep cars above half tanks at all times. 3. Do not post movement schedules on social media. She said the tone was firm, but not cruel. She said the families calmed down the moment someone in charge stood in front of them and took questions. If you feel lost, go to the town hall. Sitting in a room with other humans who share your worry is medicine. We got a late call from a stevedore in San Pedro, the same one from earlier weeks. He said state monitors are counting headcount on shifts. A third of the crane operators called in sick today because childcare busted when schools flipped to half days to save power. The yard boss is trying to hire out-of-state crane drivers, but the state will not certify them fast enough. He asked me what to tell his crew. I told him the truth. You cannot move 40 ships with 20 cranes. You can move 10 ships with 10 cranes. Put numbers on a whiteboard, set goals you can hit, and stop pretending. He said that made sense. He also said the quiet at the dock between moves feels wrong. I know that feeling in a different room. Now to the grid operator again. The Southwest Power Pool called for conservation today and then did controlled outages. People screamed online. Then at 8 in the evening, a line crew finished a bypass at a substation and brought 3 feeders back. Those crews started in the morning. The bypass required a part that was stuck on a truck held at a checkpoint until a state supervisor signed a form. That is one more scene where a single name on a single piece of paper decided whether 100,000 people slept with air conditioning or not. We are back to the same quiet ask. If you work a checkpoint, say yes faster when the call is clean and the paperwork is close enough. Lives are attached to your pen. A farmer just outside Liberty had a different problem tonight. His well pump quit after a brownout, and the cattle needed water. He called the co-op. The co-op said they could send a tech in 2 days. He called a neighbor. The neighbor had a generator with a rough inverter. I told them to be careful. Some pumps do not like dirty power. They rigged a gravity feed from a stock pond as a stopgap, ran a hose to a trough, and checked the level every hour by headlamp. The cattle drank. In the morning, the tech will arrive with a new capacitor and a better plan. That is a farm fix. It is humble and it works. Another practical mess. Pharmacies are running out of child dose acetaminophen again because delivery schedules compressed to 2 days and parents are stocking up. Pharmacist in Independence said he will set a 2-bottle limit. If you are a parent, accept the limit without shouting. If your kid has a fever and you cannot find meds, use tepid water baths. Keep fluids going and monitor. Call the nurse line at your clinic if you have one. They will tell you when to come in. This is not medical advice beyond common sense. I'm repeating what nurses told me when my own kids were small. The courts are weird right now. A circuit court judge in Jackson County issued an order today requiring a state office to release a shipment of seized goods back to a trucking company. The sheriff's office did not serve it. The clerk shrugged. The judge called the state attorney. The state attorney did not call back. I am not inventing this. A reporter friend texted me from the hallway. She said the judge looked like a person trying to move a boulder with a spoon. She said the lawyers in the hallway started trading business cards for mediation services because his order meant nothing without service. That is the legal version of our Transformer Yard story. Power is about movement, not words. Words matter when they move trucks. I'm getting messages about food. Prices up, selection down. The co-op manager in Raytown said he's getting produce from greenhouse growers up near St. Joseph. It is not enough to fill the old racks, but it is fresh and local. If you can afford it, buy a little. The grower will plant more if he can sell today. This is not a moral lecture. It is just how supply grows in tight times. Reliable demand equals more tomatoes. That is the math. A final heavy one for the night, and then we pull back and breathe. A mom named Angela called from the parking lot of a hospital in Wyandotte County. Her daughter needed an MRI. The hospital's MRI was down because the service contract is hung up between a federal procurement hold and a state maintenance fund. The nearest working MRI with an appointment was across the state line. The family drove there and got stopped at a checkpoint. The guard wanted a state-stamped referral. The hospital only had a printout with a physician's signature. The guard said no. Angela called me while her daughter sat in the back seat with a blanket. I called the hospital supervisor. The supervisor called the state medical logistics officer. 20 minutes of shuffling. The guard got a text from his supervisor and waved them through. They made the appointment 5 minutes late. The tech let them in. Angela texted me a heart emoji from the lobby. That is how thin the line is between working and not working. One text, one supervisor, one guard who says yes. You might be wondering where the federal center is in all of this. The answer is it exists and it acts, but it does not connect everywhere at once. Strategic stuff, yes. Local mess, not always. The thing we are living through is a slow-motion divergence. It is a lot of people with partial authority pushing in slightly different directions. The solution at our scale is dull. Write names. Save battery. Move water. Keep meds cold. Talk to the guard with respect. Ask for the supervisor. Ask for the inspector. Keep notes. Do not chase rumors. And because you asked for more story, plain story, not headlines, here's where I messed up today. I left the office in a hurry to check on my dad after the generator call. I forgot my wallet. I had $6 in my pocket and a half-charged phone. I stopped at the gas station on the way back to grab 2 pudding cups for him and coffee for me. The card machine was up. My card was in my wallet, which was on my desk. The cashier said, "Pay me tomorrow," which is easy to say and hard to do when the week is like this. I put 1 pudding back. I handed her $6. She slid the pudding back and said, "Bring me the rest next time." That is the economy I want us to live in. Not endless tabs, not charity that turns into talk. Just small credit between known people. I brought her the money later. She rolled her eyes and laughed at me for making a ceremony out of it. It still mattered. We end where we began, with the military families. If you go to that town hall on Tuesday at 6 in the evening, bring your notebook, your neighbor, and your calm. Eat before you go. Bring water. Write the phone numbers. Test them before you leave the room. If the commander says restricted travel radius, ask in plain language what miles that means. Write it down. If he says 0700 hours muster, write 0700 hours muster and plan your breakfast accordingly. Precision in your kitchen protects your nerves when the text arrives at 0530 hours. Before I shut it down, a few last specific updates. Fuel racks in Kansas City, Kansas. Report the morning window will open at 6 in the morning and close at noon again. Lines will be heavy at 9. If you can, hit them at 7:30. Bring a printed copy of your company's authorization if you run a fleet. Water services will flush hydrants in the Northeast Industrial Area at 10 in the morning if power holds. That will discolor tap water for an hour. It is not unsafe. Run the tap until clear. If power drops, the flush will be rescheduled. Hospitals ask that you check clinic hours before you show up. 2 urgent cares will open at 8 in the morning and close at 2 in the afternoon to match staffing. The emergency departments will remain open, but wait times will be long. If you need a prescription refill, go early. Bring exact cash if you can. Schools in the city plan to hold classes. A heat advisory may trigger early dismissal. Watch for paper notices sent home in backpacks. If you are a parent who can pick up extra kids, tell the front office in the morning and put your name on the list. Ports. 2 ships offload at Long Beach tomorrow under the state schedule. Dispatchers, do not send trucks without confirmed appointments. Screenshots and printouts are your friend when an argument starts at a gate. Borders, the checkpoint near Anthony continues. Expect random vehicle inspections. Keep your hands on the wheel, be polite, and do not joke about weapons. If you carry, follow the law to the letter. Holster, unloaded where required, paperwork in order. Do not improvise. Grid. Conservation appeal from 4 in the afternoon to 9 in the evening tomorrow. Move energy-heavy tasks to morning. Pre-cool your house if you can. If you have elderly neighbors, check on them around 5. Bring cold water. Do not make a big deal out of it. Just hand them the bottle and ask about their day. If you're in uniform tonight, state, city, county, federal, thank you for standing in the space where rules wobble. Keep your muzzle down. Keep your temper in the truck. If you are a citizen in line, keep your voice level and your paperwork ready. If you run a checkpoint, remember that a mother in a car with a sick kid is not your enemy. If you run a warehouse, remember your crew has kids too. Publish the schedule. Hit the schedule. The rest is weather. I'm going to drive up to Liberty when I leave here. I will bring my dad those 2 pudding cups. I will sit with him while he watches a baseball replay on a tablet with the sound low. I will check the generator light and text Carla a thank you. On the way back, I will stop at the gas station and pay the cashier the rest of what I owe, even though she said not to worry about it. Then I will go home, put my phone on loud, and sleep in the window between outages. We will do this again tomorrow. Send clean reports, times, locations, names. If you fix something, tell me how so we can teach it. If you hit a wall, tell me who can move it. The center is thin. Our ring is not. It is made of names and paper and small vows kept. Good night.